Okay, so welcome to the Happy Mindset Show, episode number 11. Today's episode is entitled The Power of the Pause. And today I'm joined by Lisa Hughes. Lisa is a coach who's been working with big companies and startups for the last 20 years or so. And today she has her own business called Arena Coaching. And today I wanted to talk to her about the power of the pause and what that means for her and what exactly it is. So, Lisa, could you give us a brief introduction to yourself and how you got to where you are today? People don't know.
Sure, very rocky road. As you said, I'm Lisa Hughes. My background is in marketing and commercial corporate. I worked in corporate Ireland for more years than I care to remember, let's put it like that. Right now I'm an executive coach and a facilitator and a mindfulness teacher. And the reason I came to that, it all kind of happened at the same time. I was running a department in O2. I had a big team of people. I had 3 small kids. So I was successful on the surface of what I was doing. But a couple of things came together of me realizing that even though I was good at and I enjoyed the work, that it wasn't necessarily very fulfilling. There wasn't an awful lot of meaning or purpose in it. And I was really much more interested in people than I was in technology. I really enjoyed working with my team. And we started introducing a coaching culture into O2, and I was really enjoying that. At the same time, I was super stressed out trying to, there's a phrase by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is rushing headlong through your life as though you were being chased. Mm-hmm. And I certainly felt that I was rushing headlong through my life and not being good enough at anything. You know, that whole kind of culture around not being good enough employee, not being good enough mother, not being good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. So I went to a coach and he taught me some relaxation techniques. Because if he had told me he was teaching me how to meditate, I would have run mad out of the place. That was about 12 years ago. And when people ask me about mindfulness, because it's such a buzzword now, I talk about the power of pause because that was what it gave me. It gave me just that little bit of space between what's happening in your life and how you might want to respond to that. Because I was just reacting from my gut instinct. And some of that was good. And was working. Some of it was really awful. Some of it was mediocre. But I wasn't choosing, you know. So when you get a little bit of space between the SH1T, which is inevitably going to hit the fan, or just the everyday stuff that goes on, the annoying kind of the bus is late or the whatever, other people in general terms. And you can put a little bit of space between what's going on around you and notice your reaction on what's going on for you. Then you get to choose to say, okay, well, if I'm annoyed, do I want to go where that is going to take me or where that wants to take me, or can I choose something else? So all of coaching and facilitation, in my view, is about that. It's about the ability to be able to stop and pause and say, okay, what's the outcome that we're going for here? Is this the best course of action that we have? What are our choices? Are there other things that we can do? And so because that was so practical for me in my own life, I really wanted to bring it to other people. I really wanted to give them that window of space and time so that they could access a lot of the tools and intelligence that they already had, really an awful lot of skills. But we just can't access them in the moment when our head is about to explode. So I left O2 in 2009. So this would have been 2006, 2007. I first came to meditation. I left O2 in 2009. I had left my husband before that, so it was all kind of starting to really come together. I ran a startup for a while because I was looking to pivot. And, you know, when you change careers, you don't necessarily transition very simply from one to the other. So I was doing coaching in the background, started lecturing, doing facilitation and stuff like that. And eventually started up on my own in 2012. So now I work for myself. I work both one-to-one and in groups and with teams around communication, not just mindfulness, but an awful lot of stuff where you just need to stop and pause. So communications, change management is a big one. Team building, leadership. So, and I love it. Like, I'm really grateful that I get to do it every day. And you can bring that, because that's what we need. In my experience, like, everywhere I go, people are running to stand still. Not enough time. How are you? Busy. How are you? Really busy. You think you're busy? Oh, wait, I tell you how busy I am. Super busy. Much busier than you are. So it's this kind of badge of honor. We've got this. We equate success with being busy, and being busy means I'm important. We're a lot of busy fools a lot of the time. Are we doing the right thing? So, yeah, that is a very long answer to your question.
No, that's pretty comprehensive. So when did you start seeing the power choice for yourself? Was it like one day you saw, one day you didn't, or was it incremental for you? How did that work for you?
I think what's interesting is, some days it's easier to access than others, depending what's happening. But once you know that state is available to you, once you know that you can make that choice, and once it works one time, you really want to get more of that, because you stop telling yourself the stories in your head, you stop making stuff up, you start seeing what's real and what's not. And it is very incremental. But my experience, like some people have this epiphany, road on St. Paul on the road to Damascus, and they're struck by lightning, and all of a sudden they're enlightened beings. I definitely am not one of those people. And I suppose I noticed it much more with at work. But what's really interesting for me is you start to notice it much more from other people's feedback. So people started saying to me, you're really different. What's really different? That's, and sometimes that's like, well, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing that I'm really different? So you start to have it reflected back to you from other people, whereas I don't think you really notice that you've got less on your mind, and you have less of an agenda, and you're much more in the flow. And you notice it when you're not there. So now I notice it when I'm not there. I used to notice it when I was there because it was an unusual occurrence. But the more you do it, the more you can rest in that state. Then you notice when you're out of it. Like yesterday was a very hectic day, and I had sick children, etc. And so that was the day when I was going, okay, I used to be like this a lot. And then you get to choose, and you can say, okay, I can come back to this place where I don't have to have quite so much on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Why do you think there's a tendency for people to overlook the power to pause?
It's easier. It's easier to just, because we live in this culture of kind of like, gotta make it happen. And it's, no pain, no gain. We really value action. We really value doing. We really value output and delivery and results and focus. And, we keep being told that these are, the 5 things you need to do in order to be successful, type of stuff. So very few people say to you, do less, achieve more. Those are not messages that we get, and we're not taught how to think. I don't think that it's changing slightly in education now, because they've got the DOP-B and the pause programs that they're bringing into primary and secondary school. But like, you're told to do as you're told, speak when you're spoken to, suck it up and spit it out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't speak back. Don't have an opinion. Don't think. You're not supposed to question what's going on around you when you're in school. It's like this big sausage factory. You just get in, get your points, get out to college, and then maybe you'll have a real life at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we overlook it because we're not taught to value it. We're not taught to value it from society, and we're not actually taught how to do it a lot of the time. Speed, everything's so fast now, right? We don't have time. Like if you see people in an office and somebody is sitting at their desk and thinking, very likely that they're going to get labelled, lazy or a later. Mm-hmm. And it may be that they're docile, but it may be that they just need a little bit of space around all of the stuff that's going on to process things properly. And so not only do we not value it, then you get punished for that kind of stuff. So you need to be doing.
It's true. I even heard like people like Bill Gates there, they take 2 weeks out of the year just to read and think and get space.
Mm.
Because it's definitely true. You can't solve problems if you're thinking the same way day in, day out. You're just busyness leading to the same stuff, just different manifestations of the same stuff.
Yeah. Because I read an article, Tony Schwartz is a guy who's one of the kind of business management gurus over in the States, and he took 4 weeks off in the summer. And he said what he noticed was on the first day that he was there, he had an inability to read an article that was any longer than kind of maybe a paragraph. He had to keep going back and rereading it and rereading it. Because we're so fed this diet of, bite-size news and information. Everything is sound bites. Even if we get our news on the internet now, we get headlines, breaking news, headlines. We very rarely kind of go deep. Mm. Very rarely really get below the surface of anything that we're doing. And if we stay on the surface of life without ever pausing and really going deeper, then we're going to get very surface level results.
Do you think there's a depth missing to what we're reading? I get the impression sometimes we fly through articles and we're not giving ourselves enough time to process it properly. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to have the same surface level stuff over and over. And you sent me on something recently, which was like a Zen koan. And I've only recently started looking at that stuff. And that stuff you can actually, because it's so deep or it's so kind of big and all-encompassing, you just reflect a little bit on it. And it's just like, you give yourself that space to not think because you know that your thinking won't solve it.
But that's it. You have to let it drop so that it lands in your consciousness. But it can't drop and land if there's no space for it there. You know what I mean? If we're not giving it the space to actually land. And I think it's really interesting that, when we look at Facebook and Twitter and Medium and LinkedIn and all of these places, it's quite obvious that we're getting headlines onto our phone or into our computer. And we're going, oh, that's an interesting story, or it looks like it should be an interesting story. And we're sharing it without even reading it. Yeah. I was one of the major kind of behaviors that they noticed during the 2016 election was that people were sharing stories that they hadn't even validated. They didn't even know where they came from or whether they were true or not. But we kind of read the first paragraph or the first 3 lines and we go, oh, Hillary Clinton, email scandal. And we flick it on to all of our Republican friends or whatever it is. It's really dangerous, in some levels, because with the internet, the beauty of it is that everybody has the power to publish, but the danger of it is everybody has the power to publish. So not everybody is a validated source. So we start perpetuating these rumors that may or may not be true without ever stopping and thinking, yeah, A, is this true? B, is it useful or helpful to share it? And C, can I trust the source of this? So there's an interesting, kind of thing about we are all terribly worried about artificial intelligence and how the bots are going to take over the world and steal our jobs and all that kind of stuff. But if we look at what artificial intelligence really means is it's going to free us up from the surface level, grunt, meaningless work that we're currently doing, that's currently rotting our brains in some respects. That's a very strong term, but it means that we're freed up to do higher order, higher value work, more creativity, more innovation. And if we stay on the surface, we're not going to be able to do that. We won't have the capacity for it. The things that will differentiate us in the future will be our humanity and our ability to be able to solve complex problems and to have empathy for one another and all the human stuff that, artificial intelligence never going to be able to replicate, or at least not for a long time. So I think it's really important that we learn and we train ourselves to breath and pause, be comfortable with silence, be comfortable with uncomfortable, with discomfort, and be able to go deep into topics.
What are your thoughts on travel and just going to different cultures? And because for me, I think in hindsight, it just gave me a different way of looking at things, maybe, even though I wasn't necessarily knowing that at the time. By going to other countries, I think a lot of it is just a way of being rather than consciously kind of seeing what are they doing different over here. So I just like, kind of, what's your thoughts on travel? I think you've traveled quite a bit too, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to run roaming in O2. So one of the things that that's about is negotiating agreements with other operators. So I spent a lot of time planes, trains, automobiles, offices, airports, hotels. And I think what's interesting about it is when you have an agenda, when you're doing anything, it limits your vision. You only see what you're looking for, right? So when I was in airports, and sometimes when I'm in airports, my only goal is to get through it as fast as possible, get through security, and not to experience all the the delays and the people who don't know they have to take your shoes off in front of you and all of that kind of stuff. And that really limits, I think, your experience of what you're having. Not that I'm saying that you want to be inefficient, but when we don't allow ourselves to actually be there for whatever is going on, and we're looking to get to the gate, get on the plane, and we're not there. And when we arrive in a place and we don't allow ourselves to absorb that place, we may as well not be there. So one of the places that really did that for me, because I was traveling so much, I was traveling a lot to Europe, and it was airports, offices, hotels. You didn't really necessarily get to experience where you were. But I went to India about 7 years ago now, and that was amazing because it's such an assault on your senses. India is like everything is so brightly coloured, and the smells are so intense and pungent, and it was a wonderful place to just be. And I was also there to do some work with the Hope Foundation to build not me obviously personally, but to help to build a school for kids who were in a village outside Calcutta. And so obviously it was a very meaningful trip as well, but it really taught me, because when I went there, when I started building the school, the first day I was like, plastering walls and stuff like that. But the experience is really about being with the people who are over there. So being able to take some time and notice how people live and be with the kids and really engage in the whole experience was incredibly valuable, and gives you a real visceral sense of a country and a people, and that can completely change the way that you look at the world. And that doesn't matter whether it's Calcutta, which is so impactful, or if it's... So I was in San Francisco in February at a conference, and people were saying to me, did you go here? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I was like, no, I just kind of hung out. I went to Airbnb. I brought the kids with me, but I had friends over there. So we lived very much as locals for the 10 days that we were there, which gave us a real sense of San Francisco, as opposed to, I guess, the touristy stuff. And then we did Alcatraz, because you have to do Alcatraz. But the ability to be able to drop into a place, to really experience it, I think is really valuable.
It's true. It's a useful point, actually. I think if I go to a country and I've got a preconceived idea and notion that I'm not willing to drop, I might as well not go there, because I'm getting the same experience that I'm at home, just in a different surrounding.
Exactly. You're getting your filtered version, or whatever version of it is that you think is real, as opposed to, what is actually here, what is actually going on, what is happening right now. And how am I reacting to that? It's kind of funny. I found it really weird when we were in San Francisco. They have, you wouldn't necessarily understand this, but they have these kind of beauty parlors on every corner, where the big thing is to get your nails done. Right now, I'm not a big fan, but I have 2 teenage girls who love that kind of stuff. So we went with my friend, and she brought her daughter, and we went. I found it was really interesting for me that I had this kind of very, maybe it's a very Irish response to this, which was about kind of like, so there's an awful lot of kind of Asian Americans in San Francisco. I think there's something like 25% of the population. So there's these little Asian girls, and they're doing your pedicure and your manicure, whatever it is. And I kept saying thanks very much, thanks, because it's such an Irish thing to do. But that was definitely a part of San Francisco where I was kind of going, I'm not sure I like this. Everybody doing everything for you, and they outsource everything, and they don't necessarily cook an awful lot. They get their nails done, and and they have people to do all this stuff for them. And I was like, okay, interesting that I'm having a reaction to that. So yeah, it's funny.
So is it, rather than them being wrong, you're kind of going introspective and kind of saying, looking at yourself, maybe?
Yeah. And so that's the thing. Somebody says something that triggers me. I can now recognize and go, whoa, I did not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what does that say about me? Because nobody gets up in the morning with the express intention of tormenting you.
Mm.
It just feels like that some days. It feels like the whole world is against you. But actually, we're all just trying to be happy. We're all just doing our thing. And so nobody is intentionally trying to piss you off or trying to make you whatever. So when something like that happens and you react to it, that's about you. It's not about them.
Mm.
So they've triggered something in you. There's a really great metaphor by Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, and he talks about the thorn in your arm. You know, the thorn in your arm, which causes a wound. You can either spend your whole life, knowing these are your hurts and your thorns, and building your whole life around, no one touching your thorn, and don't touch my wound, and keeping away from people who might do that, and having special equipment to make sure it doesn't touch off anything. Or you can look at the thorn and take it out of the wound and just realize that it's there and deal with the issue. But when we want other people to be different and to not do things, then all we're saying to them is you're causing this, and you're touching off the thorn in my arm. When in actual fact, it's your arm. The thorn is in your arm. So everything that other people bring out in us is about us. It's not about them. And we get to when we can recognize that, then we can get to get curious about that and kind of explore where that comes from, and then choose to behave in a way that is more effective, just works better for us, or avoid or limits damage. Very often I'll say to people, you've got three choices when something happens. You can either keep on doing what you've always done and keep on getting what you've always got. You can do something different. But if you don't know what you want to do differently, you get to do nothing. You can choose to not react, or you can choose to not do anything. And sometimes that's the thing that gives you the bit of space where other choices start to emerge from that.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, does it get easier to take the thorns out over time?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, the thing about it is it's a lifelong journey, right? And so just when you think you've kind of made a bit of progress, it's like, oh, there's another thorn. Jesus, there's a whole pile of these things.
How do you actually deal with that? Like when you feel like, I'll often go, I've made progress here, and in 1 minute I'm like, oh, did I make progress at all? How do you deal with that then?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I think one of the things I'd say is that we forget how far we've come. And this is why I love this time of the year, because this time of the year you get to look back and you get to look forward. It's a real kind of a Rubicon, and so it's good in this moment. If I feel, oh God, I did it again, I'm shouting at the kids, or something they said kind of triggered me off, I can look back at this time last year and go, doing a bit better than it was then, though. Still have a ways to go. But so I do a reflection every year this time of the year, and a plan for the next year. When I say a plan, I don't mean and I will achieve X, Y, and Z by the 31st of March at 5 p.m. or whatever it is. I set intention.
Sounds more of a framework that you have, kind of like an outline.
Yeah, exactly. With intentions and kind of directions, because I don't want to limit the possibilities either. My imagination is fairly tame. I'm always hoping, the universe will come up with something a little bit more exciting.
How important is intention? Because it's only something I've heard of people talk about recently, and I wasn't massively in my awareness before. How important is that to you?
Intention is hugely important, because intention is the energy that you bring to everything you do. So what my intention, or what my intended outcome for this is if that's coming from a good place, from a really considered and reflective and purposeful and meaningful place, then what you do will be imbued with that energy. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So my mother used to say this to me. God, I'm trying to answer my mother. She used to say, you do that. She'd ask me to empty the dishwasher or whatever it was. And I'm like, no. And she'd say, you do everything with such bad grace that you take all of the good away from it. And so this is the opposite. It is, what is the grace with which I want to do everything, so that all of my actions are what the Buddhists would call right action, or they come from that place. And it's what Gary Zukav talks about when the personality comes to serve the soul. So when you can stop and pause and think about, well, what is my intention here? What is it I want to put out into the world? And then how might that show up in terms of some of the actions that I might take, or some of the things that are full of grace and joy and bring me joy, and where I feel like I'm making a contribution and really adding value.
Mm-hmm.
How do I come from that place, as opposed to the surface reaction of kind of, this thing has happened and I'm reacting to that. When you can understand what your values are and create intention for how you want to show up in a relationship, it completely then starts to help you to choose what those actions are. So I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
2 teenage girls. I have a son who also loves me, but he's 12 and he's never been allowed to turn 13. He's been still at that forever. But the girls are, look, it's not easy being 17 and 15, particularly in this world, but their job is definitely to test their mother and to teach their mother, and they're taking it really seriously. But if I'm in an interaction with them and I can know that my intention from every reaction or interaction that we have is for them to know that they are loved, because I think that's the most important job of a parent. Yes, I'm supposed to teach them right from wrong. Yes, I'm supposed to help them get through school and college, and yes, I'm supposed, do all of the kind of the chores that go along with it. But the major job of parent is for them to know that they are loved, fundamentally, that they are worthy of love and connection and belonging at their very root without having to do anything. And so when you go into every reaction or every interaction with that as your intention, then no matter what they say to you, and they can say some fabulous things to you, when you can try to remember that, you become much less reactive to what is just the pain and the angst and the hormones and the madness of teenage years coming through.
So can you look past the words a bit easier when you're coming from that place? The words that they're saying to you, or
yeah, you get it's less about the content and it's much more about the sentiment. And if they're giving out, and if they're railing against something, and you can allow yourself to energetically feel the pain that is going with it. And I mean, all the psychological definition of blame is a projection of pain. So when we are in places where we are not, what is it, the angels of our better nature are not in charge, that's all about fear. It's all about fear, and anger comes from fear, and pain comes from fear, and it's all about fear. And so, when you can sense what that fear is, and look to soothe by your actions and by just, there's a really interesting person that I was talking to about this, and they kept saying, your only job is just to show up, keep showing up. And when I mean show up, I don't mean just kind of be there and not present. I mean to keep showing up as a parent, to keep being there, to keep feeling into what's going on in the moment, to keep being present, and for them to know that they're not on their own. And that goes for everybody. That's not just teenagers. That's the power of human connection. That's the sense of brotherhood. And we were brought up in tribes, 40, 50 people, Paleolithic. That's who we are. And now we live in this really individualized society where you don't even know your neighbors. We don't rely on one another for anything. We really, value independence and being an individual. But ultimately, we are hardwired for connection. We are hardwired for that tribal belonging, So if you can keep showing up and showing them that they belong, and show them that you're connected, and show them that you care for anyone, that's the power of that pause.
How do you find the balance between, I suppose, the sense of yourself as an autonomous person and being connected to other people and empathizing and listening and being part of a community? I think that's where we're going wrong. It's like we see it binary, one or the other. We could actually be both.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think there's, it isn't black and white. There aren't simple lines. And I think that it's all a dance, and we would love it to be nice and neat and in boxes. And it's not. It's human life is messy, and it's uncomfortable, and it's it's not necessarily easy, but that's the joy of it. Is it isn't straightforward. There are many textures and patterns, but I think it is about when you're fully present and you're able to feel into what's going on, then you can know where your boundaries are, because that's when, you know, when somebody says something and you react to that, you get that visceral reaction. That's telling you no, there's a boundary. That's emotions, and those kinds of reactions are really great data. It's all information about where are my edges, and my edges might move depending on who I am and how I'm unfolding, because I'm constantly evolving. But when we can start to look at our reactions as there are where some of my boundaries are, then we can get that sense of where am I and where is it okay for this kind of what the Buddhists call this non-duality, you know, no separateness. We're all one. That sounds very woo-woo. You know? But the reality is we all have to function and we all have to eat, and we are individuals as well as being part of this tribe. So I think if we can stay present, we can know where that is for us. There's no, you know, one size fits all. It's just not like that.
Well, I think we can acknowledge the non-duality thing because it sounds true, and then we can work from that place of knowing that my actions and intentions are actually affecting a bigger scale than I'm conscious of.
Absolutely.
When it comes to businesses, when you're working with them, what sort of commonalities are you seeing that are issues that are getting in the way of, I suppose, a sense of connection and innovation and all the things that are important to a business and community and that kind of thing? What sort of stuff are you seeing that is tending to get in the way of that?
Well, what's getting in the way of it mostly, there's two kind of big things that I see. The first is this busyness, this constant busyness of, you know, and rewarding that kind of behavior and rewarding output and rewarding results without necessarily thinking about the consequences of how those results have been achieved. So that time, that busyness, that output, and the other is the fear. And you know, I am not necessarily going to. I did a masterclass recently about inclusion, and diversity and inclusion, which is interesting, is a huge topic now in corporates. You know, it's all about gender balance and race balance and all of those kinds of things. And so there's lots and lots of statistics, and are we going to have quotas for these kinds of things, and targets for these kinds of things? And those are all good, don't get me wrong, but the message that I had around inclusion was really about how do we humanize the conversation about the people who you look at who are kind of male, pale, and stale, which are this is what's called the majority of you know, who are male and middle aged and who are in positions of authority. Equally, they are all very different people. And we are not allowing those differences to come through and shine, whether you're a man or a woman, or you're black or you're white or you're Asian or you're whatever you are. There is a culture of exclusion. You're either on the inside or you're on the outside. And I made the analogy of, have you ever seen Meet the Fockers with Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro, right? And so De Niro corners Stiller as who's come to visit. So, you know, for anyone who doesn't know the story, Ben Stiller wants to marry Robert De Niro's daughter. Robert De Niro is an ex-CIA, very fearful, very suspicious individual. And poor Ben Stiller just gets it wrong the whole time. But De Niro corners him anyway in the corridor, and he says, "You know, we have something in this family, Ben. Ben doesn't know his name, but we have something in this family." And it's called, do you remember what it was called?
Circle of Trust, isn't it?
Circle of Trust. Right, we got the Circle of Trust. And everybody in this family, we're all inside the Circle of Trust. And you, you're outside the Circle of Trust. You're trying to get in. So that's what companies feel like to me. It's this magical bloody Circle of Trust over here. And everybody's trying to figure out, am I in the Circle of Trust? Yeah. Am I outside the Circle of Trust? And we expend a huge amount of energy covering our ass. Stay inside the Circle of Trust, get inside the Circle of Trust, not be pushed outside the Circle of Trust. So when there is a circle of trust and safety and everybody is included in that, you can stop expending your energy fighting people on the inside and being fearful of people on the inside. And you can actually take that energy and worry about the people on the outside. So what was interesting for me was that I put up this picture of, like, it was a crowd of kids and one kid on the outside of the circle. And I was saying to them, like, there are people in your teams who feel like that right now.
Mm.
There are people in this organization that feel like that right now, that they're not part of the mainstream. They are never going to bring themselves to the party because everybody's so busy trying to fit in, because being who you are and being different and saying something other than the group think is not okay.
Mm.
You know, there's a blame culture. You make a mistake, you get hung out to dry. Mistakes are great. I think it was you who said it to me the other day, and it was one of the football managers saying, you either win or you learn, right?
Mm.
You know, and all those learning opportunities are lost because we don't allow failure, not on my watch. And so I think that fear of not being on the inside and doing something that's going to follow you around for the rest of the time that you're there, or fear of failing or fear of not being good enough, is huge. And we're not doing enough to address that in terms of the culture that we're in. And then this constant busyness of, what have you done for me lately? What are the latest numbers? What are the latest stuff? And really valuing this kind of busyness those are the two big things. I think we're lacking a lot of courage. I think we need to be brave, and bravery is not necessarily always rewarded.
Mm. Yeah. That's true. I think actually, because bravery, it's not like the absence of fear, it's actually having fear and just taking action in spite of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Very interesting. So if somebody wanted to contact you, Lisa, or wanted to find out more what you're doing, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website, arenacoaching.ie. I don't really I am on Twitter, but I'm more of a lurker than a poster, so you won't find anything terribly interesting there.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the main places to contact me and to follow up.
Perfect. So I'd like to thank you again, Lisa, for joining us today and having this insightful conversation. I'm sure a lot of people learned stuff from it.
Oh, I hope so. And I'm sorry about the crackling beads or whatever was going on. But it was great to talk to you, and loving the happy mindset and all that stuff that you're doing. It's a whole new way of learning. Right.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that. Cheers. So until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.
Thanks a million. Cheers.